today what we're going to do is we're going to look at a persuasive text. And I just want to know, have you ever had a disagreement with someone? Maybe you thought one thing and the other person thought something differently. Yeah, maybe with your friends, maybe your mom said clean your room and you're like, I don't think I should have to clean my room. So you had two different points of view on a topic. A lot of times at school we think, well, we have homework tonight. Well, we shouldn't have homework on the weekends if we have homework every day during the week. So you may think, oh, I shouldn't have to have homework on the weekend because I don't go to school on that day, but your teacher might be like, well, you need to learn some more, so I need you to have homework on it. So you have two different points of view over one issue. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And a lot of the times there's no right or wrong answer. So you may have some good points about your view, and the other person might have really good points about their view. And so there's really not a right or wrong answer. It's just two different points of view and people thinking differently about something. Okay, so we are going to still focus on nonfiction text. So a persuasive is usually going to be a nonfiction text. And who can tell me what a nonfiction text is? Sebastian? It's real, so it's true. It has facts and things like that nature. So a nonfiction text is real. Okay, so we are going to look at persuasion. And persuasion is a way of convincing people. So whenever you persuade somebody, you want them to believe what you believe, or you want them to buy what you have to sell. A lot of times we see ads that say 50% off. They put that there because they want you to buy it now, and that's how they persuade you to do so. So persuasion is a way of convincing people, and they can convince you to buy certain products. They can make you believe something or act a certain way, or it can be to agree with a point of view. So I can agree with your point of view because of the things that you have to say about it, or I can disagree with it because I don't believe what you're saying is accurate. All right, so that's what we're going to look at today. And the kind of persuasion we're going to look at today has to deal with pros and cons, so different points of view. So we're going to be looking at this structure here, pros and cons. And what you need to know about pros and cons is pro means that you're for something. If you're pro-government, you're for the government, okay? If you're against it, that means it's a con to you. So when we look at this story today, we're going to have pros and we're going to have cons. So what does pros mean, Sharice? If it's a pro, what does it mean?
Like you're for an issue?
You're for the issue, okay? And if it's a con, Destiny, what does that mean?
You're like not really with it.
You're not with it, so you're against that issue. And you use pros and cons and issues to make a good decision about something. So you use both sides to let you say, okay, well, how do I feel about this situation? I can look at the pros and I can look at the cons, and then I can make my own decision about that issue or that topic, okay? All right, so we are gonna look at different, this story is actually a book, but I put it in a passage format. That way it was more familiar to you and what y'all do. Because y'all don't read books on Star, do you? No, you read passages. So I put it in a passage format for you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to identify the author's viewpoint or position and explain the basic relationships among ideas in the argument. So those ideas are either they're pro it or they're con. They're for it or they're against it, okay? And the author's viewpoint is just how they feel about it. What do they want? What do they like, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to have a DOL, and we're going to have to answer 7 out of 10 questions. And then we're going to do a little writing. So the first thing that we're going to do, or that I want you to look at, is the Zeus, pro or con. And it says it's written by Kira Freed, okay? But what you'll notice about this text is that there are different text features on here. So if you will look at the very first one, there's a box around the very first few paragraphs. That box is from the editor of a newspaper. So this story is kind of like based on an editor of a newspaper said, this is something that's happening in our town, and then I'm gonna let the readers of the newspaper tell me their point of view about what's happening in the town. And this just so happens to be about zoos. What do we know about zoos? They have animals. Little kids go there. There's what? There's drive-in zoos. So there's different kinds of zoos. There's big zoos. There's zoos you can go to and you just drive through and the animals are there. What else do we know about zoos? You can what?
Learn a lot about the animals.
You can learn about the animals. Where do the animals stay at?
In cages.
In cages.
A little, or in their story of them, like where they came from.
So it gives you a
what
story.
they eat.
that we know. So today we're going to look at some of the pros and cons from different people who are getting their zoo is getting expanded. So what expansion means is that they're building onto it. So they're building onto this zoo in this town, and the people are concerned about it, and some people are glad and some people are not so glad about it. So that's what we're going to read about today, and we're going to analyze each person's point of view. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the very first letter from the editor. Okay, so if everybody can follow along with me, I'm going to go ahead and start reading that. So it says, a message from Terry Shaw, editor of the Springfield Daily Star. And the Springfield Daily Star is a newspaper. Okay, so that's just the name of the newspaper. Many of you read last week that one of our wealthiest residents donated a large sum of money to the local zoo. This money will allow the zoo to grow into one of the leading wildlife conservation centers in America. What is a conservation center? What does it mean if you are conserving something? You're what? No. Let's think of, if you conserve water, what are you doing? Are you using a bunch of it, or are you not using a bunch of it? You're not using a bunch, so you're saving water. So that's what conservation means. It means to save. So a wildlife conservation is saving the wildlife. So they're there to save wildlife, okay? We're gonna see that word a lot through here, so I want you to know that conservation is it's a place where they're saving the wildlife, okay? Let's keep going. But news of the funding has sparked a heated debate in our community. Many citizens wrote letters to the newspaper to tell us how they felt about the zoo's expansion. Some of you support the growth of the zoo, while others of you argue that zoos are cruel, outdated institutions that should be closed. Many people like some things about the zoos, but also recognize that even the best zoos can have problems. So we have people who are for the expansion, and we have people who are against the expansion that are going to be writing in here. Because it tells us that there's some people who support the growth. So if you support something, you're for it. And then if you argue that it's cruel, does that mean that you want the zoo to get bigger? No, you're against. Okay. To encourage further discussion on the topic, we are printing a small selection of readers' letters that express many of the pros and cons of zoos. The letters contain both facts and opinions about zoos that may help people decide what is best for our city and what the future should be for the animals that live at our zoo. So the editor is telling us, I'm giving my people a platform in my town to tell me, do they think this is a good thing or do they think it's a bad thing? So are they for it or are they against it? And those are the kinds of letters that we're gonna read, okay? So we're gonna read these first letters and we're gonna analyze what the writer of that letter thinks about the expansion of the zoo. So we're going to decide, are they for it or are they against it? And I'm going to show you the first one. We're going to do the next one together. Then you are going to do one with your partner, and then you're going to do it by yourself. So it'll be roll, okay? But you have to pay attention because you have to think about, is this person for this or are they against it? And why are they for conservation or expansion of the zoo, and why are they not? Okay, so the first one we see some bold print, and that is called a heading, right? You know that headings are text features that we see in nonfiction text. Underneath it, you see a box. Every time we see one of these little boxes that are kind of shaded in, that means that that's a new letter. Okay, so every time we see that, we need to recognize this is a new person that's writing in a new letter. Okay, so this one says responsibility to our fellow creatures. A letter from Suzanne McCoy, a wildlife biologist. What is a wildlife biologist? Okay, she's the person writing this, but what does a wildlife biologist do? They study the animals, so she knows a lot about animals, right? So we can expect to think that she knows what she's talking about, okay? All right, I enthusiastically support the expansion of the Springfield Zoo. So what does she do? She supports it. So we know that she is for or against it? For. So we know that she is for the expansion of the Springfield Zoo. In recent decades, people have become more aware of the dangers facing Earth's environment. People are changing the natural world in ways that threaten many animal species. What does that mean if it threatens the animal species? So the animals are dying because of the changes that we're making to the world. Extinction happens. All right? Many kinds of animals that have lived in balance on our planet for millions of years are now in danger of becoming extinct. It is up to us to fix the problems we have caused by cleaning up the environment, shifting to greener lifestyles, and making every effort to save species whose lives are threatened by our activities. What does it mean to make the environment greener? To make it better. So there's like that movement going on where it's like make everything greener, and that is recycling and saving water and those kinds of things. So she's talking about we need to focus on doing that so that these animals don't die. Okay? So she is for expansion of the zoo because she thinks that it's going to help us learn how to better save the environment so the animals can live out there and they won't become extinct. All right. My hope is that the Springfield Zoo will join efforts to breed endangered animals. What does that mean, to breed endangered animals? Okay, what does it mean to breed an animal? So if you breed an animal, that means that you're putting animals together to make more animals. Okay, so they're breeding these endangered animals so that those that are almost extinct or they're on the verge of becoming extinct are having babies so that they don't become extinct. So she's saying, my hope is that the Springfield Zoo will join efforts to breed endangered animals. So if that zoo expands, she thinks they can help save the animals that are becoming extinct, okay? Without zoos, these animals would run the risk of dying out completely in a short time. Zoo professionals work very hard to help these species survive. In some cases, they are even able to return animals born to zoos to the wild. So one of the reasons why she is for the expansion of the zoo is because the zoo can help create those animals that are endangered. So they can help make more of those animals so that they don't become extinct. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a number 1 right here beside this, because this is one of the reasons why she thinks that the zoo should be expanded. She thinks that they should breed the animals, and that will help the animals to not be endangered anymore. Okay? Many zoos work closely with individuals and organizations in the animal's native region to establish wildlife refuges. What is a refugee? So a refugee is kind of like a safe place. So they have these native regions to establish wildlife refuges, mean they have a safe place for these animals to go in their natural habitat. So we don't bring them to the zoo, but a wildlife refugee has it in their habitat, but they're watching to make sure that they're staying safe and that kind of thing, okay? They also help educate local people about farming methods that are less damaging to the environment. Some zoos also conduct programs that support keeping wild animals in their native habitat so they don't need to be moved to refuges. So they support keeping animals in their habitat. It educates local people about farming methods so they're less damaging to the environment. What does she say that we need to do with the environment? We need to make it what? Save it. And what was that word, that term? Greener. So we need to focus on making it greener. And so if we do that, if we educate the local farmers on how to farm correctly without damaging the environment, maybe that'll help save some of the animals as well. Okay, so I'm going to put a number 2 beside this paragraph because I know this is another reason why she is for the expansion of zoos. Okay. What kind of world do we want to leave to our children and grandchildren if we want our descendants to experience the incredible variety and beauty of nature? We will need to work to preserve wild animals. So what is she saying here? We need to save the animals, but why do we want to do that? They will die. But what does it say here? It says, what kind of world do we want to leave our children and grandchildren? So what is she saying about the future generations? If the die, if the animals die, are our children or grandchildren going to get to experience and know about those animals? We know anything about the dinosaurs besides from fossils? No, because they lived so long ago. We weren't alive when they were alive, and that's what she's saying is we can help preserve these animals so that our children and grandchildren can experience the same things that we experience. And if we have zoos, they can keep learning about them because they can help preserve them, okay? I'm gonna put a number 3 right here beside this because that's another reason why she is for zoos, okay? The expansion of the Springfield Zoo will allow our community to take a more active role in spreading the message of conservation. There's that word again, conservation. And what does conservation mean?
Save.
To save. It will also allow our zoo to join efforts to save many species from extinction. So she believes that zoos are here to help animals not become extinct. All right, so when we get to our letter, we're gonna go and we're gonna put our letter number, and this is gonna be letter number 1, okay? And is letter number 1 pro or con for zoos? Is she for it or against it?
For it.
For it. How do I know she's for it?
Because she wants to help.
But what does she say in the first sentence? It says, I what? Look at it. What does it say? Y'all don't do this one. I support. This paper right here, leave in the back. You don't need it yet, okay? You don't need to be writing anything that I'm going to do it up here. So she is for it. She is pro the expansion of the zoo, okay? And her name is Suzanne McCoy. Okay? You don't need to be writing anything. We're going to do it all up here right now. All right, so I have 3 boxes for 3 reasons why she's for it, okay? I know one of the reasons that she's for it is because she says it will help, they will join efforts to breed endangered animals, which will help them survive, so those species can survive. All right, so on the first one, I'm gonna go ahead and write that reason number 1 is that zoos can help endangered species survive. So I know they won't become extinct. Some of the details that support this is that she hopes that the zoo will breed them. It says, my hope is that the Springfield Zoo will join efforts to breed them. So she hopes that with the expansion of the zoo, they will help breed them. So I'm gonna write hopes to breed animals because that's one of the details that support helping endangered species survive. Okay, one of the other details, actually that was a short one, so there's not another detail. Some of these have 2, some of them don't, but just write one detail. So she hopes that the zoos will help to breed the endangered species and they'll survive. If we go back to our paper, number 2, we've already labeled number 2. Paragraph 2 told us that they are going to work closely to establish wildlife refuges. So zoos help establish those wildlife refuges that help save the animals. So reason number 2 is going to be that the zoos work closely to establish, and what does the word establish mean? Do we know what establish means? To put together? Okay, kind of, yeah, to make something. So to establish something is like, it's here, there it goes, we're gonna put it together and make it happen. Closely to establish wildlife refuges. And we know that these wildlife refuges are gonna help those animals out in their habitat, okay? And some of the details is that those refugees help educate the people about farming. Remember it said that it helps educate the people about farming so that they won't harm the environment. If we harm the environment, who else do we harm? The animals, because where do they live? In the environment, all right? And reason number 3, we wrote, or we put beside it that it is, her thought is, what am I leaving for my children? Do I want them to have a green world or do I want them to have a dirt world? Do I want them to experience all the awesome things about animals that I can experience? Or do I not care about it? So another reason why she supports the zoos is because she wants the future, which is the children and grandchildren, that's your future because they haven't come yet, to see the world as she has. Okay? And she knows that by doing that, she needs to help preserve the environment so that the wildlife can thrive. Okay? So what we've done is we've taken the letter and we've kind of analyzed it out. Why is she for the zoos? These are the reasons why she's for the expansion of the zoo. These are some of the details that support why she is for the zoo. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing throughout this thing. We're going to look at why is she for it and why is she against it. And from the things we learned, we're going to be able to determine what we think. Should we expand the zoo or should we not expand the zoo? All right, so let's go on to letter number 2. And letter number 2 is from Roy Chin, a retired teacher. Okay, so think about that person. What does he do? He's a retired teacher, so what does he know about the zoos and animals? He says, zoos provide priceless education. And what do we know about that word priceless? It doesn't have a price. So they provide education that you can't put a price on. Zoos help educate. That's what we're looking at here, okay? All right. Zabay, you want to read the first one for me?
Yeah. Zoos are important centers of education. Zoos give millions of people the chance to see and appreciate wildlife firsthand. Visitors leave with a greater understanding of variety of life on Earth, as well as a sense of responsibility as stewards of the environment.
All right, if we look at that paragraph right there, she gives us, or Roy, he gives us 3 reasons right there in that paragraph of why he is for or against the zoos. Is he for or is he against the expansion of the zoo? Why do you think he's against? Now think about what he... Yeah, so he's a teacher and he says they're important centers of education. So that means he is for the zoos. He says they're important. If they weren't important, would he be for it? No, he would be against it, right? So we know that he is for the zoos. He is pro-expansion, okay? It says zoos are important centers of education. Reason number 1, they give millions of people a chance to see and appreciate wildlife firsthand. How many of us would have ever seen an elephant in our life if we've never been to a zoo? Huh? In the wildlife or at the zoo? At the zoo, exactly. I don't go to Africa or Asia and see the wildlife every other day. On the weekend, you just get up and go search for wildlife. But the only time we would get to see those is if we got to go to a zoo. And if there were no zoos, would we ever get to experience that? A lot of us would not, exactly. So he's saying it's giving us a chance to see and appreciate that wildlife firsthand. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put a number 1 by that. Visitors leave with a greater understanding of the variety of life on Earth. What does variety mean? You have a variety of things in front of you. What do you have? You have a lot. So there's a lot of animals on life, and it's telling us that when we go to the zoo, we have a greater understanding of how many different animals there are in this world. So I'm going to put a number 2 by that sentence. And then as well as a sense of responsibility as stewards to the environment. So what does that mean? If you have a responsibility to the environment, what does that mean to you? You have a duty to do, right? So what do we have to do for the environment? We have a responsibility to what? To help, to save it, to take care of the environment so that not only we can live, but so all the other animals can live as well. So that's going to be my 3rd reason. And he's going to elaborate on that, and we will see that. Okay? So we're going to put a 2 here. And we're going to put a 3 right here. Okay? So he gave us all of his reasons right off the bat. Now he's going to elaborate on those reasons. Okay? So it says, in 2007, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums published the results of a 3-year study titled Why Zoos and Aquariums Matter. This study showed that visiting an AZA accredited zoo or aquarium makes a real difference in the conservation attitudes of visitors. What does conservation mean?
To save.
To save. So it's saying that it makes a difference to visitors because their attitudes change about how they feel about saving the environment, right? Viewing wildlife face to face in these settings caused more than half of survey visitors to want to become more involved in conservation efforts. So it's saying these people that went to the zoo say that what they learned made them want to help save the environment more than before they went. You can? Yeah. More than half also reported that their visit gave them a greater sense of connection to nature. So they felt connected to nature more by seeing these other animals versus just seeing them on TV or something. They got to see them firsthand and see how they move and see how they act and those kinds of things, okay? Research has shown that young people need to spend time in nature to develop a sense of values about the environment. Visiting a zoo or aquarium might be the best chance for city dwellers to learn about life outside the world of concrete and steel. So if we didn't have the Dallas Zoo, how many of us would go to another zoo somewhere? Maybe, but it's really close and it's there for us. So a lot of people, when they live somewhere, they stay in their confinement. If you live in the city, you stay in the city. You don't ever usually venture out too far. But with the fact that there being a zoo there, those people